the bottom line, the Stone Cold Sensei.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
This is The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast starring Renny D and Friends. Thanks for listening to The Pencil. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Pencil Podcast.
Hey, this is Chris Jericho. You're listening to The Pencil with Renny D. Pencil, baby. He's a pencil. Yeah, boy.
Welcome inside episode 22 of The Pencil. It's the professional wrestling podcast hosted by me, Renny D. Who am I? What am I? I am a professional wrestler. I spent the last 12 years of my life inside of a professional wrestling ring. And on the side, I went to the University of Minnesota and obtained my MBA so I can bring you both the wrestling aspect of the podcast world along with the business aspect of the business world, I guess. And my co-host, as always, is Dirty Boy Travis Mester, who has a degree in journalism and a love for professional wrestling. Dirt, we are inside episode 22. It's the last episode of 2014. Are you ready to do this?
I am more than ready, my man. We're going to get to talk about the last episode of Monday Night Raw, which we got to watch with each other in the living room here at the Cottage Grove Center. Quite exciting for both of us. And stay tuned for a little bit at the end of our segment here at the beginning of the show. We're going to get to give out our year-end awards for WWE, including Superstar of the Year, Match of the Year, among others. So stay tuned for that. But we want to get it started with a little bit about the final Monday Night Raw of the year.
Before we do that, I got to do a quick plug, because tonight's show is a big show for us. Not only is it the last show for 2014, we have Lance Hoyt, as we know him, as the Japanese audience and New Japan Pro Wrestling audience knows him as Lance Archer. Big Wrestle Kingdom 9 show coming up on January 4th, available in the United States of America for the first time ever. Thanks to Jeff Jarrett, who I received an email from today, which was fantastic. But January 4th at about 2 a.m. in the morning, that's Eastern Time, 1 a.m. here Central Time, or you can watch it traditional pay-per-view 7 p.m. on all your traditional cable outlets, Comcast, AT&T, DirecTV, Dish, etc. for $34.95. It's the Wrestle Mania of Japanese wrestling, and Lance Archer is featured in an 8-man tag match. He was kind enough to come on the show with us to talk not only about his match, but the whole card in general, because you and I are big wrestling fans, and we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw here in a bit. But we don't necessarily get a chance to venture outside the Continental 48 very much. So it's going to be very interesting to pick up kind of where we left off. We had Lance Hoyt on the show earlier in our, run of the podcast realm. And we talked about his time on the Indies, his time in TNA, and his time in WWE. But we really never got back to the Japanese days of his professional wrestling career, where he is actually making a huge name for himself. And this is a big, big event, basically the Wrestle Mania of Japanese wrestling. A lot of Americans are on the show. AJ Styles, the Young Bucks, Luke Gallows, obviously Lance Hoyt, Shelton Benjamin, Davey Boy Smith, etc. And Jim Ross is calling the pay-per-view. So it's going to be very interesting to bring him on to talk about this big card, because there's a lot of buzz in the internet wrestling community about Wrestle Kingdom 9. Is it going to change the perception of wrestling in America? I have my doubts on some things just from my business acumen that I carry along with me, but I do love professional wrestling, so I am going to watch the show. Not entirely sure if I'm going to watch it live, watch it on replay, or how, but we will be able to dive into that hopefully next week's episode before we bring in TNA or former TNA World Heavyweight Champion Ken Anderson, who will be on the show next week. But again, one thing you can do, our podcast survives because of you, the listening audience. We don't ask for change. We don't ask for dollars. We don't ask for checks. We ask for you to go ahead and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, and share the podcast with your friends and family on social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Vine, Instagram, etc. Visit us online, pencilpodcast.com, at pencilpodcast on Twitter. My boy Dirt here is at Travis Mester. I'm at Real Renny D. But as you mentioned, we are taping this actually directly after Monday Night Raw, and it was, in my estimation, a fantastic way to basically say goodbye to 2014 and hello to 2015.
It was I think last week's episode we definitely talked about, we were in Minneapolis for Raw 1 week ago, yesterday I suppose, for most of our listeners, which was also a very good show, something that we didn't really expect. It's the end of the year. Many times around Christmas, New Year's, these shows tend to be throwaway shows. I think this year the WWE has done a very good job in making 3 hours of Monday Night Raw pretty interesting, pretty impactful to most of the stories that are going on within the wrestling world in WWE. And tonight was no different. I think Edge and Christian obviously were the guest stars, guest hosts, if you will. And let's start where it finished. It ended with Seth Rollins forcing John Cena's hand and bringing the Authority back into power. Your thoughts, Renny D?
To be completely honest, from a couple different things here. One is, you and I were talking over the past couple of weeks, not only on this podcast but outside this podcast, what's the most appropriate way to bring back the Authority? They alluded to it earlier in the show when John Cena and Edge embraced, and Cena basically thanked him for his respect and thanked him for his mentorship over the years. Honestly, I didn't see it coming. I didn't think it was going to happen this quick, but I mean, there had to be a way to bring them back, because you're not going to have them go away and just be done. They're too good of heels, right? I guess you could call them, for the product, not to have them on the show. The way they brought them back, I thought was almost perfect, to be completely honest with you. I mean, you had Edge there. You had the segment earlier. John Cena has proven that he will do absolutely anything for his friends, for his fans, for his Make-A-Wish kids. And they alluded to that in the interview. And Seth Rollins did a fucking fantastic job of making it seem very emotionally real to me as a wrestling fan. But even as just, a casual fan who's watching it for the first time tuning in, they're probably thinking, this feels real. And they're not going to kill somebody on TV. They're not going to paralyze somebody on TV. But the way he spoke in his promo, the way he presented what he was going to do, made it seem realistic. And I think a lot of that had to do with it was being unscripted. In my opinion, I felt like it was. But I can't think of another way that they would have done this unless they backed John Cena into a corner, which is exactly what they did tonight.
Correct. And I think two things on bringing the Authority back. One, exactly what you just alluded to. I thought it was very good. I thought it was very well done. I think the person that it helps the most is Seth Rollins, for exactly what you just said. I think he looked very strong. I think he did a very nice job in being that guy and being that heel that was going to force John Cena's hand and force him to do what he wanted to do, which, how many times does that really happen, to make Cena do something he doesn't want to do? So I liked that. Secondly, the part that I didn't like, Brock Lesnar was involved in tonight's show. I loved when Brock Lesnar comes back. I thought tonight he was not a focal point like I would hope that he would be. I think he ended the show as a secondary or even probably third in charge in what was most important at the end of the show. And as the WWE Champion, I expect you to be the most important person. As the WWE Champion who is never around and is billed as an attraction, a special attraction that is supposed to be the most important thing when he's around, I thought that was surprising to me, that they included Heyman and Lesnar walking out with no music at the end of the show to basically stand on the stage with the Authority. I wasn't crazy about that, but all in all, it was good. I'm glad that the Authority's back. I think they're good for TV. I think they're good for the product, but I'm very apprehensive as to what exactly they're going to explain on why Lesnar and Heyman are now not. I don't know. Are they with the Authority? Are they not? Maybe that's what they want us to think. But I didn't love that part of it. Yeah,
if you think of, you got certain dates for Brock Lesnar to fulfill before his contract runs up at Wrestle Mania 31. And I mentioned this to you. I said that Lesnar should almost be in every single segment. You got a 3-hour show. Why not have him F5 every? Now I understand, dude. That's not realistic. You're not going to do that. But you really need to take advantage of his character a little bit more. Now there's going to be those people out there saying, well, he was in the first segment of the night and he was in the last segment of the night. What more do you want? Well, I mean, when you're building towards the final battle at Royal Rumble between John Cena and Brock Lesnar, which their first two matches have been very unique, very different, and actually very entertaining, I thought. I mean, their SummerSlam match was completely off the wall with John Cena getting completely dominating.
Their SummerSlam match is something that has been discussed as maybe the surprise of the year,
or
maybe
even match of the year.
Maybe the match
some
of the
people
year.
Thought, some people
fantastic,
thought
fantastic.
It was fantastic because it was something that we're not used to, and for him to come back tonight in the opening segment, and I mentioned this to you as well, for him to powder, which wrestling term for powder, you get out of the ring and you kind of escape the face. He was being a heel, and in real life, John Cena and Brock Lesnar, if they fought. Actually, that's a good question. I don't know who would win. I mean, they're both pretty. So, I mean, maybe the more I think about it, it wasn't a bad thing. Lesnar seems to be this guy who can just destroy anything that's in his way. So there's really no reason for him to bail out. But it's a heel tactic, something you don't see a lot of in the WWE, but they are kind of moving towards that more. But I'm agreeing with you at the end of the segment. It seemed like the highlights of the 10 o'clock hour in the Central here zone was first and foremost the Authority coming back. John Cena, Seth Rollins, whatever's going on between those two, and then Brock Lesnar.
Last thing on that ending, and you might be able to speak to this more because you might look at this type of things more. I know you've talked in the past on different segments and different shows about the way that they structure where the heels stand, where the faces stand, where they are in the ring, how they do the camera angles, those types of things. I felt like the end of the show almost made, for lack of a better way of putting it, the way that the camera was looking at everyone made Lesnar and Heyman look like they were smaller than everyone else. And I don't remember a time that Lesnar's been on TV where it's ever been like that before. He's always portrayed as the monster, the big person, which for us that are watching on TV means that the camera is going to be below where you are.
Correct.
And on the end of the show, where was the camera angle? It was looking down on the people, and it was in Triple H and Stephanie's faces. It was in Seth Rollins' face, and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman were in the background looking as if they were smaller, quote-unquote, less important to what was going on. That was surprising to me, but we're on the road. We're on the sidewalk to Royal Rumble, if you will, getting close to the road to WrestleMania. So it's going to be very interesting coming up in the next couple weeks and how they portray what happened at the end of Raw tonight.
There's a lot of wrestling podcasts that you who are listening to right now can subscribe to and listen to, but I don't think many wrestling podcasts are going to get into the cinematography of Monday Night Raw. And you brought up a great point. The camera angles in Raw is a huge thing, and because when somebody like Finn Balor, who's had spent 12 years on the indie scene and then went to NXT, he said he had to relearn everything because of the camera angles and because of how you need to walk out during your entrances. That is just as important on WWE Raw as it is to an Oscar award-winning movie.
And anyone who watches the WWE Network and watches any of the original things on there sees wrestlers. I've seen guys like CM Punk. I've seen guys
who
like we've heard of him. I've seen guys like Stone Cold. I've seen guys like Bret Hart. I've seen them all talk on episodes that I've watched on the network about how that part is what people need to learn more before they're on the big time. Because everyone, all the guys in NXT, all the guys in WWE, all the guys in the indies, they can all wrestle between the ropes or between
the four ropes,
the four sides.
If you're Claudio, you got four ropes and four sides of the ring, which is funny.
But learning that backstage stuff, learning how to talk, learning where to stand, where to look, those are the types of things that I think are hard to learn. And Brock Lesnar has been a professional in all of those types of things.
That's not on him, though, that last segment.
No, it's not on Brock Lesnar. It's on whoever has the plan and whatever the idea is and whoever has, quote-unquote, the pencil. They're going to get to decide those types of things. But those are the things that stood out to me at the end of Raw. But early on in Raw, let's talk a little bit about those first 2.5 hours because they were also very, very good.
Can I mention one thing before we go to that? You mentioned this, I think, last week on the pencil. Seth Rollins' mic skills. And it was shown tonight when he was cutting the promo on how he ended the Shield and how he created it so he could end it. He has come so far.
He's great. He's great on the mic.
And I did mention it. Like he made it believable, and he's running with it, man. They gave him the ball, and he's running with it. And that's really all I wanted to mention because we know Cena's great. Big Show actually is very good on the mic. I mean, he can't work as well as he used to, but very good on the mic. He's
better after tonight. He's better on commentary than he is on the mic. But yeah, get him to talk. It's better than watching him in the ring half the time.
And you mentioned the first 2.5 hours of Raw, which for the last Raw of the year, they really gave us quite a bit.
Not to mention that they had a house show 100 miles away, which means they didn't have a handful, 6 or 7 guys that they normally have.
Dean Ambrose, most importantly.
Not that he's important, but at least he's normally on Raw, so we didn't see him tonight. But they were able to fill 2.5 hours with stuff that we did not fast forward through, which was a plus from what they do at some point. So first 2.5 hours, I know what you want to touch on, and I want to talk about it too. It's the second most important thing that I think happened on Raw tonight, and some may think it is the most important, and that is
Daniel Bryan returning. And to be honest, I actually think this was the most important thing on Raw tonight for this reason only. We both knew the Authority was going to be back at some point. We didn't know about Daniel Bryan. I mean, we legitimately, we weren't sure what the extent of his neck injury / elbow injury was. And we've seen it happen with wrestlers. We've seen it happen with Edge, where you can't wrestle anymore. Neck injuries are nothing to be, for lack of better, I'm sorry, but it's nothing to fuck around with, man. And you're in the ring, you mess up your neck, it's something that's really scary. There are people who have broken, Stone Cold broke his neck, Kurt Angle broke his neck. I mean, there's guys who have all broke their necks that have come back from it, but the neck with the nerves to the brain to the body, there's a lot of stuff going on there. You actually said, when we found out he was doing this, you thought he was going to announce his retirement from professional wrestling.
Yes, I thought during the entire show, I had the feeling that Edge was there, all the groundwork was made, the show opened with Edge explaining how, I guess it was a flashback to, was it 2011?
Maybe Edge was such a great character to have tonight. He was very important for 2 segments.
He was, and I don't care who you are, Edge is funny, and whenever you can bring that comedy into the show, it's good. And the way that it opened with Edge's promo from, I believe it was 2011, saying that how he wasn't able to be cleared by doctors and he was no longer going to be able to wrestle, I felt like it really built up to a point where I thought that Daniel Bryan was going to announce his retirement tonight. And had he, it would have been terrible. It would have been sad, obviously.
But you made a good point, though, at where he was on the show. If he had announced his retirement.
When he walked out, when he did, at the 9:30 hour, before the Peep Show, whatever they called it tonight, the Peep Show / R-rated Superstar, I don't remember what they called it now. But yeah, coming out before the main event, I can't imagine...
The cutting-edge Peep Show.
The cutting-edge Peep Show. You're not going to come out before the Cutting Edge Peep Show and announce your retirement and kill the crowd before the main event. So that made sense, and I'm very happy, obviously, that it was what it was and that he is going to be back for the Royal Rumble, which I think everyone that listens to this podcast, including the 2 of us sitting here, were upset that he wasn't in last year's Royal Rumble. But he got his WrestleMania moment last year, and let's hope that he gets his Royal Rumble moment this year. Let's have him come in number 1, number 2, number 3. Who knows? Maybe he'll get influxed into that Authority storyline now next week, which I think is very likely. That's an exciting storyline that wasn't in existence as of 1 day ago. So I think that's a big positive going forward.
And Daniel Bryan hit on the Authority during his speech. Once he started talking about the Authority, I turned to you. I said, "Oh, he's back to storylines." So that gave it away for me that he was going to be back. He has been out of action for a long time. So I don't foresee him having it's hard to say, though, because the crowd's so behind Daniel Bryan still to this day, and we are 9 months removed from WrestleMania 30, which we were live at, and we heard the reaction, and the reaction to the Raw after WrestleMania was enormous for him. Booking Daniel Bryan forward, before we move on to the next segment, great to have him back. Fantastic. The Royal Rumble is going to be stacked with people coming back. Okay, we had Bad News Barrett coming back tonight. We know Orton's coming back based on WWE live event reports. If you book Daniel Bryan going forward, he's not going to win the Rumble because it wouldn't make sense for him to main event WrestleMania this year.
The only 2 people as of today that are in the Rumble are Reigns and Daniel Bryan, correct?
Correct. I mean, that have announced their intentions of being in the Royal Rumble match this year.
So I think it only makes sense that the Authority will most likely, I would think, stick him number 1. He'll have a great show. It'll be awesome. There'll be a lot of yes chants. He won't win it. But I think that's the direction that they go.
So do you think that Triple H wrestles Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania again this year and Sting wrestles Seth Rollins?
No.
So who does Daniel Bryan wrestle at WrestleMania?
I don't think any of us know, but if I had to say, I would say that he will wrestle Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Daniel Bryan's Rollins
Damn, can you imagine how good that would be?
Early on in the show, Rollins against Bryan.
That might be match of the year 2015.
It could be, and when we're doing this 1 year from today, that might be a match that we want to think about.
Which we will be doing this.
If we do, and when we do, and we have our year end of 2015, we'll make sure that we come back to this 15-second increment of our show and play it at the beginning of next year's show, because that might be the match of 2015 if that happens.
I tuned into an episode of Talk is Jericho 2 weeks ago, and I'm a big podcast guy. Since I started this podcast with you, I listen to a lot of them. I do listen to the big ones, the Roddy Pipers, the Jerichos, the Steve Austins, the Colt Cabana, which I would say our podcast is more closer to what Colt Cabana does, based on who we have on here for guests, but in the Jim Ross ones. And Jericho had on Ryback from the Lou at Monday Night Raw, and he told the story about how he broke his leg, had a rod put in, got the rod taken out, career was almost over. He touched on CM Punk. And then tonight on Raw, they gave him some good time. He had like 3.5 minutes to really, I guess, recap what he talked about on Talk is Jericho, about how his career came in. And you mentioned this to me too. The WWE rarely ever allows any superstar to do this. And they talked about him being Ryan Reeves, Skip Sheffield, 2 names before he became the Ryback. They gave him the platform to talk about it. They gave him the platform to say the Russia-USA thing is over, which, I mean, I think you could appreciate it because you hated it. And basically gave Ryan Ryback a chance to really be himself. And I heard this on the podcast, so everything he said I was familiar with already. I got a text from one of our friends who's a big mark of professional wrestling, said that he really, really enjoyed it.
I thought that segment, which was between 7:30 and 7:45, probably.
It was earlier, yeah. It was after.
I thought that segment where they gave him the microphone coming out of the commercial break was one of the most surprising things I've seen on WWE TV in months. Because, like you said, they don't do that. They don't give a guy the microphone. They don't let them talk about things that aren't going on in storylines today. That was legitimately 6, 7, 8 minutes where Ryan Reeves, got to put himself over with the crowd, with everyone watching at home like we were, to basically tell his story. And I thought it was very, very interesting. I thought it was captivating for me as a fan because I didn't know most of that stuff. I didn't know that he worked in Louisville, Kentucky, one of my favorite cities in the United States, by the way.
Montgomery Gentry, baby.
Montgomery Gentry. Oh, I got a free concert in Louisville, Kentucky 4 months ago, and it remains to be one of my favorite cities. And now knowing that Ryback, who obviously is a full-fledged face at this point,
he's fucking over.
And he is. We were at Raw in Minneapolis last week, and he was over as hell. And tonight, he was over again. And anybody that thinks that is sound that's being influxed into your TV, it's not. Because I was there live, and it was he's on fire right now. And I can't imagine he's going over on Rusev at any point. But whatever they do, I hope they put on a show and put on a big hoss fight, because I hope that he continues to go forward, and maybe they're on early at Royal Rumble and he gets to have his moment in the Rumble to actually put on a show as well. I hope that happens, because I think that what happened tonight is only a big, big positive for his character.
2 things. I mean, you can protect Ryback in that match. You don't have to have a clean finish, which I know we don't like. Okay, there was finishes tonight on Raw that we knew were coming that we weren't fans of. But you can still make Ryback look strong while doing the job. 2, it gets us away from the USA versus Russia thing, so it gives Rusev sort of a long-term plan, because if it's going to continue to be Russia versus USA, when he gets beat eventually, he doesn't have a character moving forward. He's kind of like Goldberg moving forward, nothing to do. But you mentioned that you thought the Ryback interview, to me, was not maybe a direct reaction, but maybe I guess, I'm not really thinking of the word I want to say here, but because of the CM Punk comments, okay? Maybe alluding to the CM Punk interview because, 3.4 million, or whoever, a lot of people listened to it.
And it was nothing positive about Ryback. It was CM Punk had 5 to 10 minutes of basically bashing Ryback. And WWE came out, and Ryback has talked it was on the Jericho podcast, I believe, that you had listened to.
Yeah.
And he had talked, and he's refuted some of those things, and I think that it's obviously a very big positive for Ryback going forward that WWE is giving him the microphone, letting him talk, letting him explain who he is, because like later in the show they let another character do, it was something that we haven't seen a lot of. And if it's not Cena or it's not Rollins, who gets that kind of time on the microphone normally? Not very many people. But
not to mention the video package with it.
Yes, the video package. I mean, that was a really good 12 to 15 minutes on just Ryback, and that did not focus on Rusev, which I thought was interesting. A different take
to the promos. I'm a fan of it, and I'm interested to see, because I've always said that when workers go on podcasts, they generally get themselves over more on the podcast because they can be themselves. WWE TV, you do a lot to. You're basically working off a script. There were promos tonight where I did not feel they were scripted. And to be honest with you, when I look back at all the promos tonight,
Cesaro had some things to get off his chest.
Yeah, Cesaro, I mean, he did allude to the storylines, but he still got to say some things that got a reaction from the crowd saying that, hey, they say I don't connect, but I deliver. And he basically got a standing ovation when he said that.
He made a direct correlation to what Vince McMahon said, where
Which is people, good. Why not? If they're going to put it on the network, take advantage of it on live television.
And they are. So if they weren't doing this, these are the things that we would be complaining about.
My question then, I mean, I know we can really get into what Cesaro said, but he didn't say a ton of things. He got into and he did the job. So, but I think a lot of this, maybe not directly, but Triple H runs the NXT live events, the big showcase shows. There was a lot of talk after NXT Our Evolution about it. And then TLC was kind of a dud to some people. I thought maybe it served its purposes. You know, maybe now that they got the social media feedback, because the WWE relies a lot on social media. They do. They put a lot of merit in social media, and NXT got a ton of rave reviews. Maybe the WWE is maybe taking a page out of that book. Maybe Triple H is booking more of the Raws now, and Vince is kind of letting him do it. I don't know, but it really seemed like a different person was booking Raw tonight, with the promos especially. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I enjoyed both Cesaro's short segment. If they gave him maybe an extra 2 minutes to really talk his piece, I think that really could have gotten him connected with the fans a little bit more. And
they might have had it booked originally for him to have a couple more minutes, but on a 3-hour show, you only have so much time.
Right.
So maybe he had to push that in, because obviously the major point of Cesaro's talk was to bring Bad News Barrett back, which one of our close friends, Ryan Drapes, Bad News Barrett is his number one guy. So if he was on this podcast every week, I know you love Randy Orton, I love Dolph Ziggler. If we had a third guy sitting next to us, another guy that's very interested in wrestling, that's close with us, he would love Bad News Barrett just as much as we love any of them. I know he's excited about BNB being back. I think that's another addition to the Royal Rumble field that's going to be very interesting, because they obviously look to put him over against Cesaro tonight. I would assume we're going to see a lot of that in the next 3 to 4 weeks with him.
I think that tonight's Cesaro doing the job to Bad News Barrett is one of the final nails in the coffin to Cesaro having a up and down 2014. I believe that since Austin brought him up on the podcast, Vince talked about him, and he got a little bit of mic time tonight outside of the Tyson Kidd tag team, maybe they're going to give him a little shot in 2015. He did win the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. You never know with him, and I love Claudio. I think he's great. He did a lot of work on the indie scenes. He turned 34 years old today as of Monday. He's getting older, so he doesn't have a ton of time left. But, with him getting older, they obviously have their developmental system. They can bring up guys left and right, which they brought up a tag team tonight. And I did tweet this out from our account. I thought they looked strong in their debut, the Accession, but I didn't think it did them any favors, because I'm not sure what the hell they're supposed to be. Are they supposed to be a heel tag team or a face tag team? Because at NXT they're heel, and they won over on Mizdow, who's a face. So are they a heel?
And
did you get a feeling, a strong feeling of what they were?
I got not a strong feeling, but I got somewhat of a feeling that I think they're going to be faces. But I think my biggest question was, I don't think the impact was on the Ascension's debut as much as it was on the tag team division as a whole. What exactly are we doing at this point? Is obviously the Usos took the tag team titles from from Miz and Mizdow
Which
earlier in the show, which I thought was exciting.
Which I thought they should have ended after the fucking throwing Damian Sandow in front. Mish, they got the pin. I thought it should have ended and they could have worked this out more.
Yes.
But you like the title change. I didn't.
Jey Uso was kicking out of the Miz's finisher. I mean, it was a very good tag team match, I thought. I was excited that you're giving us an idea that, the tag team titles can change hands on Raw. They can change hands during the week. You don't have to wait for the network, and you don't have to wait for pay-per-views in order to see that sort of stuff. So that was exciting, I thought. It wasn't expected, and I don't know if I would have booked it that way, but I didn't hate it. Then having the Ascension go over on the former tag team champions in basically a squash match 40 minutes later was surprising, and I don't know what to think of that. I think the Ascension is going to be a face tag team, but the way that they did it in their squash match tonight made it very confusing because there's not many people on the roster that are more over than Mizdow.
I think if they're pushing the network, you have to bring them up as the characters they were on NXT, which I have a problem with them changing character gimmicks at times because there are people who tune into NXT, there are people who tune into that product, and they bring them up. And we know the Ascension just did the job to Kalisto and Sin Cara, who's a face tag team. So I don't know. I mean, going over on Mizdow might have done more for Miz and Mizdow breakup, which I told you I thought they should have won the tag team titles tonight. They shouldn't have lost, and I thought that Mizdow should have eliminated the Miz at the Royal Rumble. But, you know, the WWE's booking things. They have 3 more weeks until Royal Rumble, which is one of my favorite pay-per-views of the year for a couple reasons. One, it's actually very fun to watch the 40-man this year, Battle Royal, live from Philadelphia. Wish we could be there. But 2, it officially marks the road to WrestleMania 31 at Levi's Stadium.
Speaking of Philadelphia, I map-quested Philadelphia from Minneapolis at work today, and it's too long of a drive. Otherwise, we'd try to be there.
I got free airline miles. I know,
but the road trip would have been great, but we're not going to make it.
Maybe we can save Blue Meanie. I know him.
I know. It would be great. If anybody's got tickets, just let us know. We'd love to be there, but it's quite a drive from here. But
before we do the rewards, though, because I know
we don't want to be the rewards yet. We got one more thing we want to talk about.
What do we want to talk about? Ooh, my man.
Your man.
My man.
I wanted to ask you.
Ask me.
You're excited about the Royal Rumble, obviously. Who
Correct.
isn't? We've got 3 more Monday Night Raws before the Royal Rumble. Randy Orton. He's back at house shows. They've tweeted out pictures of him, which is a mistake,
stupid.
Obviously. You can't be... I don't think there's a reason to be bringing back somebody that big at house shows.
MSG. Okay, I get it. You need to sell tickets at MSG, but for Christ's sakes, if he's not going to be on the TV show that reaches 3.4 million people... or whatever they reach now.
What is it going to matter if 20,000 people see him in a stadium? You're right. But you're a Randy Orton mark. I'm
a Randy Orton fan.
Me too.
I'm a mark.
Me too.
I'm a mark.
Me too. I love Randy Orton. Let's not be fucking crazy. But are we seeing him next week? 1. And 2, how are we bringing him back? Are you thinking it's going to be something? I got to assume he'll be involved in the Authority at this point.
Correct.
But how do you book Randy Orton's return?
If he has some sort of affiliation with Daniel Bryan, and they work off of each other. Although I believe that Orton is one of those guys who doesn't give a shit if he's a face, doesn't give a shit if he's a heel. He's going to be Orton, and Orton's going to get over.
He's got a new T-shirt, by the way. Go buy it.
Great one, WWEshop.com. Anyway, cheap plug. But yes, you put him with Daniel Bryan some way, and maybe they take on a Triple H. I don't want Kane in there, but even if they did like a Triple H Seth Rollins tag match at Fastlane, that's going to get over.
Yes. I don't think Triple H wrestles at anything other than the top. Well, then again, nope, you're right. He wrestled the Evolution at it wasn't a top 4 pay-per-view, so maybe he will. I don't know.
I'm happy, though. I want to hear voices. And at this point, do you really bring him back before Royal Rumble? Maybe, with the Authority being there. It makes sense. I mean, they really want to throw the cards. But I don't want them to like throw everything they have in the pot before this January pay-per-view and then just kind of like blow off steam going in the fast lane and then ramp back up for WrestleMania. I want it to be a solid pedal to the metal for the next 2 months and really get people to buy that network for WrestleMania 31.
And I think we're at a situation where they can do that, and I think we will see Orton on TV. He's not coming back at house shows last week if they're not bringing him back on Raw. If it wasn't tonight, it's going to be next week.
We have Sheamus yet too.
We're going to see Sheamus. We're going to see Orton. I wouldn't be surprised if it's an Orton tweener and it's a Sheamus heel that comes back, which I would be fine with. And if Orton's not in some sort of match at Royal Rumble, probably with Rollins, I assume, then I would assume he's in the Rumble. But maybe
he's entrant 40, easy night,
Maybe. Yeah, I can see that, but I don't. But his injury is not legitimate, so I don't think there's a reason to bring him in late in the Rumble. If you can get that pop and have him in the ring longer, it'll make more sense. But I digress on Orton. Great, I can't wait to see him again. Raw tonight. Give me a grade 1 out of 10. 10 being fantastic, 1 being terrible. Before we go on to our awards,
8. I thought it was really good.
I was going to say 7.5. I thought it was a very good Raw. The only things I didn't love were the fact that I think Lesnar could be used better, but if that's my only excuse...
And there was one match that wasn't extremely entertaining, but it wasn't a bad match.
No, it wasn't a bad match. And that was the swagger filler match in the middle against Luke Harper, which there was no real explanation as to why that match took place. But if my only explanation of why I didn't like something about Raw is because of how they used Lesnar, and Lesnar was there, that's not that big of a quip. So I'm okay with it.
Bryan's back, title changes happened, Bad News Barrett's back.
The Authority's back.
I mean, a lot of stuff happened.
And Cena ended up on his back, which I assume many people loved.
Right, and we wanted Lesnar's music to hit at the end, but the Authority's music hit, which we didn't expect that at all. Okay, So who wins Lesnar-Cena at Royal Rumble? Now, not everything happened tonight. I was actually leaning today towards Cena a little bit more. I thought, hey, that actually might happen. I think after tonight, Lesnar still walks to the Royal Rumble, the WWE World Heavyweight Champion.
I think as of today, I think that Cena wins. And I don't know where they go from there. And I don't know why I think that. And I will reserve the right to change that pick over the next 3 weeks.
I'd say that's 1-0 Renny if that happens.
But I am going to say...
Who wins the Rumble?
I am going to say that Cena will win. And I would not be shocked if Cena wins, Reigns wins the Royal Rumble.
So you're still on the Lesnar. Okay.
Lesnar beats Cena at Fastlane, and we still might get.
I mean, that could be
might get the same WrestleMania that we think we're going to get. But if they throw that wrench in and have Lesnar lose the belt somehow, some way, I wouldn't be shocked, and that would be my pick as of today. Although I don't think that makes the most sense. It's just hard for me to imagine that they're going to have Cena go on his back 3 straight times against a guy who's never around. But we'll see. Here's
what I think. I think Lesnar leaves Royal Rumble with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, and I think now because of what happened tonight with Brock Lesnar sort of transitioning to associating himself with the Authority, I think Randy Orton wins the Royal Rumble, challenges Brock Lesnar because he does not like the Authority at WrestleMania, and then I think Seth Rollins cashes in the Money in the Bank at WrestleMania on Randy Orton with the accumulation of a lot of storylines at the biggest showcase, the Showcase of the Immortals.
And it doesn't have to be him cashing in on Randy Orton. It could be Randy Orton delivering a RKO, then an interference, and then him cashing in on Brock Lesnar for all we know. And that is not a bad pick, my man. I'm not against it. And if it does happen, I think that's another match that might be in our 2015 picks. But it's not 2015 yet, my man. It's not 2015 yet. What it has been is a great 2014. We've been to a lot of live shows. We started a podcast 6 months ago. We are in episode 22, and we are now going to get to give our year-end awards on a handful of things. We're going to talk about Match of the Year. We're going to talk about Superstar of the Year. We're going to talk about Diva of the Year. We got a handful of things we want to get to. How do you want to do this? You want to just throw out the topic and then have us both say what we think, or how would you prefer?
We got the list in front of us here. We got Match, Superstar, Face, Heel, Surprise of the Year, Diva, and Breakout Star of 2015. So because it's not 2015 yet, we'll say Breakout Star 2015. Let's go ahead.
We're calling Breakout Star of 2015?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the Breakout Star of 2015. Who we think is going to be the breakout star. Let's do who is the breakout star of 2014. Let's start with that now then. Fine, fuck it.
Okay.
Breakout star of 2014. Who's the breakout star of 2015? My breakout star of 2014 is Seth Rollins. My breakout star of 2015, it's going to be Roman Reigns. I mean, it seems like it's a given, but it feels like that's where everything's going to go.
I would say my breakout star of 2014 would be... My breakout star of 2014 will be the same as yours, Seth Rollins. I don't think there's a better pick.
Dean Ambrose would be the closest.
Dean Ambrose is a close pick, but I think that Seth Rollins has solidified himself as the breakout star of 2014. My pick for potential breakout star of 2015 will be, I will say, on a lesser scale, I'll say that Sami Zayn's probably going to hold maybe one, possibly two WWE titles. Maybe not. It won't be the World Heavyweight title, but I think that he could be a guy that we're talking about next year at this time, like we're talking about Seth Rollins right now. I'll say Sami Zayn for 2015.
Sami Zayn could be a Dolph Ziggler type of a character.
Exactly.
So
and Dolph Ziggler, the way he's been booked the last 2 months, wouldn't have been crazy to throw him out there for 2014 because he's come a long way, and he might be another guy that legitimately he could have been in the discussion for 2014 or possible for 2015, depending on what happens.
So could
Cesaro.
Face of 2014. Who
The
was
face
the face?
of
My face,
2014.
if you don't know,
Good
wrestling
guy.
good guy of 2014. Who was the most over guy as far as the fans being behind them for 2014?
We were at Wrestle Mania 30.
I know where you're going with this.
We were at Elimination Chamber back in February in Minneapolis. Thank you to Hubert's for all the beers, and Kieran's, by the way, Kieran's Pub down in downtown Minneapolis for all the beers that we had before and after Elimination Chamber and during our lead up to WrestleMania. And we were at one Monday Night Raw here. I think the most over guy was the guy that said that he's going to be in the 2015 Royal Rumble tonight on Raw. Daniel Bryan was the face of 2014, and that guy wasn't even around for 7 months, but that's my pick. I think he gets the fan reaction that I'm shocked how much of a fan reaction he still gets after being gone.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you too. I was trying to look for somebody just to differentiate myself from you, but I can't do it. We were there the WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. We were there the night after, and even though he got injured, we still had guest chants throughout the entire arena. He was definitely got the biggest reaction of the year.
Next on the list, heel of the year. What do you think, Ryan?
My biggest thing here is, I'm torn between a couple different characters, but because of the old school tactics, I'm going to go with Rusev as heel of the year for WWE. I understand it's like a 1980s gimmick, and what he does but with Lana as his mouthpiece, it was very loud around the SummerSlam time, and people love to boo him, and he is actually a really, really good heel. So I'm going to go Rusev was the biggest heel in my book in 2014.
Is it cheating to say Triple H? Am I allowed?
No, see, I was thinking Triple H or Stephanie as well, but they're so damn good. I just wanted to go against the grain a little bit and pick somebody who's up and coming.
I'll say Triple H if it's not cheating. If I had to choose other than Triple H,
outside the Authority,
outside of the Authority, I'd probably. This is the
Seth
pencil.
Rollins?
No, this is the pencil. So we can't. We're not going to have ties and all that kind of stuff. I like your pick of Rusev, but I think the best heel on the roster is The Miz. I think he has the tendencies backstage. He has the tendencies on the mic. He has the tendencies in the ring that he is a heel 24/7, 365. And if you can have a face next to you during every show for the last 4 months and you still get booed and you can still get that reaction from the crowd, I think he's a guy that would be in the running. If I can't have Triple H, I'll take The Miz. But for all of you out there, if you allow me to take Triple H, that's the one I'm taking as heel of the year.
Diva of the year, baby. Diva of the year. There's a lot to pick from. Some people made some big impacts. Some people didn't.
Nikki Bella.
Okay.
I picked Nikki Bella. I think she made the biggest strides from January 1 until today inside the ring. It doesn't have that much to do with her character and the confusion that still to this day there is for why Brie and her are friends again and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of storyline things that I think have issues with her, but if you're looking at the divas, I think that she had the biggest impact on screen, and I think that she improved a lot in the ring to impress me, and she was the diva of 2014, I think.
Great pick, and that was going to be my pick too, but I'm going to go a little bit different because we were there the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. I think Paige made a huge impact, and I think that after being at Raw last week, she got an extremely well-received, ovation from the crowd. So Paige was my Diva of the Year coming up from NXT, making some strides in the WWE, winning the Divas title twice, actually.
We've got 2 categories left. I'm going to go with Surprise of the Year first. You can go first. Surprise of the Year. What do you think?
I said this on Extreme Pro Wrestling Radio Live from Hubert's before Monday Night Raw, and I know what people are thinking. I'm not going to say them because I'm sure you're going to probably pick one of the two, but my biggest surprise of the year, coming from the professional wrestling circle and being a pro wrestler, was CM Punk I guess, walking out on the WWE, even though we heard his podcast. I understand he was hurt. There was a lot of stuff going on. I just felt he was a consummate professional that would fulfill his contractual obligations, or at least, but maybe there is. But that was my biggest surprise, because he was involved in this future Triple H storyline at WrestleMania and then just disappeared. And I know there's a lot of other stuff out there that shocks people, and I'm agreeing with it. I'm not going to disagree with what you pick at all. But to me, from the pro wrestling side of things, CM Punk just leaving and then joining UFC, I guess, recently here is my biggest surprise of the year.
My surprise of the year will be a match that I was in attendance for. You also were in attendance for. I was wearing an Eat, Sleep, Conquer, Repeat t-shirt that I had bought at a concession stand about 2 hours before the match took place. And I was shocked, along with everyone else in attendance. I turned around when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker 1-2-3 in the middle of the ring with his third F5 at WrestleMania 30. I turned around with both my hands on my head, and I just said, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!" And everybody in our section, everybody in any of the sections of the WWE universe around,
people
it was the quietest I've ever heard. 75,000 people, and I didn't believe what happened until Brock Lesnar's music hit, and there were legitimate discussions while we were walking out of the stadium that we thought that it might have been a mistake, and we thought that it might have been something that wasn't meant to happen. We were thinking maybe the referee made a mistake. We were thinking this. We were thinking that. There were so many things that went into that match. And the match was, if we're talking about match of the year like we did earlier, excuse me, we haven't talked about match of the year yet, but that one, let me tell you, spoiler alert, was not a match of the year. It
wasn't a good match.
It was a terrible match, but it was
surprise.
It was the surprise of the year, I think. Brock Lesnar over The Undertaker, WrestleMania 30.
Well, then obviously that brings us to match of the year. It wasn't a spoiler, but we're at the last category. And this one's really tough, though, because if you think... Oh, it's not the last category. Good point. But we're going to do match now. But you think of all the matches in all the... There's 52 weeks of Monday Night Raw. There's 12 pay-per-views. There's 52 SmackDowns. There's 52 main events. There are 4 big NXT events a year. There's a lot of matches to choose from. And let's not kid ourselves, people. For everyone who complains about the WWE product being terrible, there were a lot of good matches this year. And I am going to go ahead and... I'm going to pick a match that we were in attendance for. Minneapolis at the Target Center. The Elimination Chamber match between the Wyatts and the Shield. I thought it was fantastic. I thought WWE dropped the ball by not having any sort of... they stopped it after that. It was that one match, and then it was over. Then they kind of like disseminated it was over. But the match being there live, seeing big men do dives, and I was really torn between that match and John Cena and Cesaro from Raw. And they wrestled a couple of times, but it was just a fantastic match on Raw, and we just witnessed a great match with Seth Rollins and John Cena on Raw. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but I'm going to go ahead and say that match, that 6-man tag at the Elimination Chamber for Minneapolis, Minnesota back in February was my favorite match of 2014 that I've seen.
The match of the year, I would say, was the 6-man tag on a pay-per-view between The Shield and Evolution before The Shield broke up. When Seth Rollins took the huge dive off of the seats into all of the Evolution, and basically that was Roman Reigns' coming out party to go over. I believe he pinned Batista that match, and
he got hurt.
And as I say that, let's give Batista a little bit of credit, because that motherfucker did the job to a lot of people while he was back. So I hope we see Batista again. As much shit as he got, he did a nice job while he was back. He did the job to a handful of guys, including Reigns, Daniel Bryan, all of the above. So I think that was the best match that I saw, and it was nice to see the Evolution back together. I mean, if Orton's involved, I'm surprised you didn't pick a match that Orton was involved in, to be honest, but what are you going to do?
He ain't bad.
But that's my match of the year. Lastly, but certainly not least, Superstar of the Year. Who you got as we on our way out?
Sure as fuck wasn't Roman Reigns.
Fuck him.
I mean, it wasn't him. No offense to Roman Reigns, but he was injured for a while.
Superstar of the Year for 2015, I'm all in for Roman Reigns. Be awesome, but it wasn't your year in 2014.
It wasn't. And if Daniel Bryan didn't get hurt, he definitely would have been Superstar of the Year in 2014. Yep. But I got to go with the workhorse, man. John Cena. Superstar of the Year for 2014. I think it's an obvious pick for some people, but He's been involved in a lot of the main storylines. He's my boy, man. I put all the merit in Jonathan Cena II.
Before I go with my answer, how many matches do you think John Cena wrestled this year?
I mean, he doesn't wrestle nearly as much as Seth Rollins, but he's got 10 years under his belt in WWE.
That, my friends, right there is a segue, because my superstar of the year is Seth Rollins.
Did you pick him? You didn't pick him to be your breakout star of the year, but you're going to pick him to be your superstar of the year?
Correct.
How does that work?
Because I play by my own rules.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Seth Rollins, because Seth Rollins, I'm not going to degrade him to breakout star of the year, because he was more than that. He was the superstar of the year.
He didn't win any titles at all this year, did he?
It's not about titles,
Just the Money in the
man.
Bank?
It's not about
I'm just
titles.
saying.
Brock Lesnar's got the WWE title, and we didn't put him in any of these. So, Seth Rollins, superstar of the year, put on some of the greatest matches of the year. He was in my match of the year. He was in your match of the year. He was in a handful of other matches that were definitely in the conversation for match of the year. He didn't need to win titles to make an impact. And where I'm from, that's how you become a star. You don't need to have a strap, and you don't need to have money in the bank, but he does have it. But he was fantastic throughout 2014, and even though he does CrossFit, which I hate, I'm still on board with him being Superstar of the Year for 2014.
I fucking hate it too. I hate it too. But what I don't hate is the fact that we started this podcast in August. It's the end of December. It's the end of 2014. Lance Hoyt coming up next, Lance Archer to the New Japan Wrestling fans.
Lance Archer, let's keep in mind, is the first two-time guest on the pencil, which we're pretty excited about. We're going to talk to him again. We're going to get all that information from him. Timely episode.
Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling presenting New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 9 live from the Tokyo Dome on January 4th in obviously Tokyo, Japan. It is the Wrestle Mania of Japanese wrestling. Going to be in the States for the first time ever on pay-per-view. $34.95. We're going to talk to Lance next about any reservations that he might have on the business side of things for New Japan Pro Wrestling, because I would say that the majority of the American wrestling audience doesn't know a lot about New Japan Pro Wrestling, or doesn't know a lot about wrestling outside of WWE for that matter. Next week, we have Mr. Anderson from Impact Wrestling as that debuts on Destination America. Two great timely episodes here. Also, January 9th from First Avenue in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Dirt and I will be representing the pencil at First Wrestling. Tickets are available at the door for $20 a piece. Doors open at 7. Show starts at 8. It is wrestling. It is burlesque. It is live rock music. Sponsored by Pabst Blue Ribbon. Probably one of the finest brews ever made. But we're looking to attend a lot of indie shows, a lot of wrestling shows in general. I think for 22 episodes, we're doing fairly damn well.
Can you imagine where we're going to be at episode 44? Oh my goodness.
That'll put us right around Wrestle Mania, right? I mean, maybe after?
It's going to be an interesting season. It's going to be an interesting season.
We'll reach out to some more guests. After Ken Anderson, as we said, we don't have anything set in stone yet, but Jeff Jarrett's kind of emailing me now, so maybe we can get Slapnuts on the podcast.
We have a couple things in the goddamn hopper. I'll tell you that much.
He's at Travis Mester on Twitter. I'm at Real Renny D. The podcast is at Pencil Podcast on Twitter. We're on Facebook at The Pencil, too. Just look us up. PencilPodcast.com. New episodes every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, YouTube, and Stitcher. For all of us here at The Pencil, and by all of us, I mean basically the two of us, and by basically, I mean, literally just the two of us. Want to say thank you so much for the support in 2014. Stay tuned with us in 2015. We're going to get bigger, better, and do the best we can to bring you the best guests in 2015. Have a happy new year. Stay tuned. Lance Archer from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Wrestle Kingdom 9 is coming up next. The Pencil's kicking off the new year with their biggest podcast yet. On January 6th, we will officially kick off Destination Impact. We are available on iTunes, YouTube, PodBean, and Stitcher. Find us online at PencilPodcast.com or follow us on Twitter at PencilPodcast as we welcome former TNA World Heavyweight Champion,
Mester Anderson!
Hey, Dave, what do you get when an atheist and a Christian start a podcast?
I don't know, Ken. What do you get when a Christian and an atheist start a podcast?
I don't know. You're the frickin' comedian. I figured you'd have some kind of joke or something.
Right. Hi, I'm David Vox Mullen.
And I'm Mester Anderson.
Seriously?
Wait for it. Just wait for it. Anderson.
And we're the hosts of Push the Button on the DVM Podcast Empire.
It's a show where we discuss religion, politics, and sex. All that stuff that we're not supposed to talk about.
I am a Christian.
And I'm an ordained minister with the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
I think that's code for he's an atheist.
And together, we tackle any and every hot-button issue that the world is scared to talk about.
Yeah, we're not afraid of the truth.
Yeah, we're not afraid to piss people off.
We're not afraid to
Push the button. So find us on iTunes.
Or simply visit us online at dvmpe.com. And God willing, you'll come back for more.
Yeah, God willing. You took the words right out of my mouth, Dave.
On Sunday, January 4th, it's a worldwide professional wrestling spectacular that only happens once a year live from the Tokyo Dome in Japan. Wrestle Kingdom 9.
There's nowhere I'd rather be than ringside in Tokyo. What a night. What athletes. What an event.
Global Force Wrestling presents New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom 9. Live from the Tokyo Dome. Sunday, January 4th. Exclusively on pay-per-view.
You've been listening to another great episode of The Pencil, a professional wrestling podcast coming straight at you every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. But hang around, we got a lot more to come, because up next is the guest of the evening. We dive right into the world of professional wrestling, asking all the questions that you want answers to. Up next. Just 5 days away from not just the biggest wrestling event in the country of Japan, but potentially the biggest wrestling event in all of the world. Wrestle Kingdom 9 is live this Sunday from the Tokyo Dome in Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And joining us for the second time in our pencil history is Lance Archer. Lance, my brother, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, but you forgot to mention that I am the American Psycho.
The American Psycho, Lance Archer. Might be known to some of the American public as Lance Hoyt. But, dude, how excited are you about the show that's coming up in just 5 days from now?
Man, you know, it's been an awesome experience the last 2 years that I've gotten to be a part of it. You know, the last couple years we were defending our IWGP tag team titles. This year we're not doing that, but you know, with the business of New Japan and how much it's grown in the last year, and even from the time that I started with the company, every year the Dome Show has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And this year, it's probably going to be its biggest just based on the number of fans that have come to all the regular shows, the people that are watching there, plus the American understanding of what's happening is so much bigger this year with GFW promoting it and putting on a live pay-per-view event here in the States. You know, if you want to get up at 2 a.m. on the East Coast or 11 p.m. on the West Coast and watch it live, you can, or it's going to have replay on a normal time Sunday evening around 7 or 7:30.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of questions surrounding the pay-per-view and how well it's going to do in America, and we're going to get to that, I guess, in a little bit. What I kind of want to do is, when you're on the show the first time, we talked about your indie days, we talked about TNA, we talked about WWE, but we really never had a lot of time to get into your days over in Japan.
Right.
And I know on those first couple episodes, you mentioned that you started working in Japan right around your TNA days.
Right.
Do you recall your first Japanese experience?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was 2007. I came over for a small company at the time. It was called Makahan. I worked in a little place called Shinkiba First Ring. In actuality, the man that I'm in his group now, Minoru Suzuki, I actually faced against him in a tag match in my first match ever in Japan.
That's awesome, and it's coming full circle in just 5 days. And what we try to touch on, I know, too, the difference in the audience reactions in Japan compared to in the States. And I know once upon a time the Japanese crowd would actually sit on the floor. I know the Tokyo Dome actually has seating, I believe. But what is the main difference between the fan base in Japan compared to the fan base in the UK or the fan base here in America?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the fans still kind of see it as a real thing. They see the wrestlers as fighters, and they have a kind of different respect for it. I've always said, wrestling in America is an awesome place to wrestle. Wrestling in Japan is an awesome place to wrestle. Wrestling all over the world in different areas and different places and getting those different reactions is always an amazing experience. Wrestling in America is like being in a beehive. There's always a constant buzz. There's always some noise. There's always somebody yelling and screaming one way or another, and that's what kind of keeps that life going. But in Japan, there's always kind of an attentiveness by the fans. They're watching everything that's happening, and they're very respectful of the action that's happening, because I think they understand that the guys, each and every person that steps in the ring from opening match to main event, are putting their life and their bodies on the line. They've worked hard to get to that point, and everything they do, good, bad, or indifferent, is something very hard to accomplish, and they understand and respect that. So when you do good things and you get a good reaction from a Japanese crowd, you've really done something good, because they're really quiet and attentive, and sometimes it can be a little disturbing as an American, especially when you first get into that element that is the Japanese wrestling environment. The one thing, and I will say this, that New Japan has done really well is they've kind of, I don't know if you want to call it modernized it or westernized it, but they've added the characters and flair, and the fan base, especially in the Tokyo areas and Osaka areas, have really gotten into being a part of the show, kind of like an American crowd, but with that same Japanese respect, which is an awesome experience.
So your first time over there, when you worked Suzuki, and you probably heard the stories of the Japanese crowd, your first time in Japan, not maybe getting the reaction from the crowd that you are expecting, how did you take that at first? Were you kind of caught off guard by it? Were you very well prepared for it?
It was just one of those things that I didn't know if they just didn't enjoy it, or if that's just how they normally react. And then somebody afterwards were like, no, that's Japanese fans. They're just watching. They're really paying attention to what you're doing. So, if you get a reaction, you've really done something well. It's not that they're bored or not that they don't care. It's just that they're really, really watching. And when I first wrestled, it was in a very small building. So the environment always in a small building, when the crowds are big in a small building, which, I think that building at max holds about 300 people. And we did well, and I think we pretty much sold it out when we were there. It's a small environment. Small environments always kind of breed more of a buzz to it, just because people are so close together and they're so close to the ring and they're so close to the action. Whereas when you start hitting these big arenas, it's kind of overwhelming. I've had the opportunity, luckily in my career, to be a part of Wrestle Mania and to be a part of Wrestle Kingdom third year in a row here coming up. And when you get into those huge environments, you don't really pay attention to the fact that it's that big and there's that many people watching it, but because everybody's so spread out and so far away, it's a theater, and you're really working hard to catch the attention of the people in the very last seat of the biggest building that you're a part of. So, it's a very different experience working 300 people to 50,000 people or 72,000 people when I got lucky enough to be at WrestleMania in Arizona.
Right. How did you catch the eye of the New Japan, I guess, the decision makers?
This business is the entertainment business. It's all about kind of who you know and the connection you've made throughout your time in your career, and whether people are kind of on your side or not. And I've done a good job of meeting the right people and making the right connections and having those good relationships that each time a different path has come in my career, leaving one, going into another, I've had people on my side to go, hey, let's give this guy a chance. And that's kind of how it came about with New Japan. My time with WWE ended. I had people that were like, man, you should really try Japan. I already had worked in Japan. I'd actually contacted those people about going back and working with All Japan, because I'd worked All Japan back in 2009. And kind of the different connections from the Japanese people that I knew and that were helping me out to the American side, and the people that still knew people in New Japan. There was enough people going, hey, check this guy out, and they did. And then, it was on me to go in there and perform, and I guess I've done okay. I've been there for 3.5 years.
Was it your idea for you and Davey Boy to get together then, or did New Japan bring that about?
That was their idea. It was about a year after I'd been there, maybe a little more than that. I'd been working just as a singles guy and working in the group Suzuki Gun since my debut in June of 2011. And then they were bringing Davey Boy Smith in, and they were like, hey, we're going to pair you guys. And, you know, I knew him and he knew me from our WWE time, but we didn't really know that much about each other. But I think both of us came in the mindset of, hey, let's go out there and try to make this team special. You know, it wasn't I'm going to do what I've got to do for me and only me. And then if you want to do your thing, okay, cool. It was, let's make this team good. Let's make this team fun. Let's make this team successful. And in turn, it'll make us successful. And I think that's what's helped us do so well.
Is there legit heat between New Japan and Noah, Pro Wrestling Noah?
Hey, man, it's the business. I don't know anything about that. I just know that our match consists of Toru Yano and 3 different guys.
Sure. It's just, I know I listened to Young Bucks, I believe, were on a recent podcast with Cole Caban. They were kind of talking about the differences between, and I know for a while when I broke into the business too, it seemed like that was the case. And with New Japan, I know when I broke into it seemed like that was the hot place to work, but then they kind of faded off for a while. And then now they're back full steam ahead again. Right. Do you know what are they doing differently now that basically brought them back from where, because at one point they were at a very low point, I believe, in their promotional status, and now they are the talk of the wrestling community. Do you know what they're doing, or how do you feel that they're doing things differently to regain that status as the elite promotion in America or in Japan?
Well, and I think they're working their way towards America. You know, the big difference is they've obviously changed who's booking the show. They've changed some of the people in their office personnel. You know, I don't know all the business relationships, but I do know, like, when Inoki left the company, there was a big change in who was doing stuff, the decision makers, both for what's happening in the ring and on the business side. And a lot of that was put in positive play, you know, and the guy that's really putting everything together he's done a really good job, of taking, like I said, that Western style, that American style, and implementing it into a traditional Japanese wrestling style. And traditional Japanese wrestling, to me, from my understanding of the history of it, is they're fighters. They're 2 guys that are fighters, and there's a big respect for both fighters. And the one thing they've done in the last few years, I think extensively, is add the characters and the heels and the baby faces, the good guys, the bad guys, the heroes and the villains. They've added all that to a point where the people are starting to understand that, and you're actually getting boos, whereas in the past, I think, like I said, it was just fighters fighting, and people respected that, and both those guys worked hard. You know, they've had some traditional villains in the past. The Gaijin, the Americans, the Stan Hansens, the Bruiser Brodies have always traditionally been the heels, the bad guys, just because we're the foreigners there. But I think the characters that they've put into play in the last few years especially are what has helped them take their business from one level to the next level. Because they've got the strong fighters, the Tanahashis, the Okadas, the Nakamura's, the Ishis, the Makabes, the Nagatas. I mean, the list goes on. The Tenzans, Kojimas, the guys that we've fought a million times that are traditionally amazing pro wrestlers and fighters. And then they've given them freedom to be more characters and them to come up with more characters. And Okada, who's the Rainmaker, and Tanahashi, who's the rock star. Ishii, who's the bulldog, you know, he's the pit bull, excuse me, not the bulldog. I got the bulldog on my team, you know.
Right.
It's just implementing all those characters along with strong wrestlers, fighters, and I think it's just that taking their business to a whole new level.
Was there a big learning curve for you when you started working in Japan, as far as, obviously there's a language barrier there, but the culture and everything else that goes with it? I guess, how big was that learning curve for yourself? Because you're a very intelligent man, and I would assume that you probably picked it up rather quickly, but the language itself might be more difficult to learn.
Oh, yeah, the language is very difficult to learn. I know a lot of words, but I don't know sentence structure very well. You know, that's probably the most difficult part is knowing what wordage and verbiage to use at what point and all that fun stuff. The learning curve is always there. I mean, I think you're either learning to adapt to their style. Like I said, you know, I'm from the South. I'm from Texas. Southern pro wrestling is very slow and character driven and things like that. And so you have to learn to fight. You have to learn to make people go, man, he really hit him. Man, he really kicked the crap out of him. You have to make people believe in that and then still implement that character, the American Psycho. That's something that I've been given an opportunity that if I was able to do what I'm doing now in pro wrestling, whether it be TNA, WWE, or wherever, I would have been way more successful in both of those places if I would have done then what I'm doing now. And a lot of that comes from the confidence that has been given to me through New Japan, just constantly saying, good, but we want more. We want more. We want more of that character. We want more of that personality. We want more of that. Oh, that was really, really good, but can you give us more? It was never a situation of, okay, that's cool, but not so much right now. You know, it was always more, and it just gave me an opportunity to create a character, the American Psycho. I know who I am when I step in that ring. I know who I need to be when I step in that ring, and people know who the heck I am when I step in that ring.
And you're giving a platform here in 5 days in America for basically the first time ever for New Japan for Wrestle Kingdom. Now, this is an event that they hold on January 4th, and they've been holding it since 1992. What's the significance of January 4th? Do you know the story behind that?
New Year's is a huge holiday for them. You know, where we have Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that. You know, obviously they don't have Thanksgiving. Christmas is more of a couple's holiday. It's, you know, girlfriends, wives, you know, here's a present, you know, okay, cool, have Merry Christmas, let's go back to work or do whatever we got to do. New Year's is their big holiday. It's their one time a year. It's when everybody is off work. It's when everybody goes and travels. It's when everybody goes on vacation. It's when everybody goes and visits family. That's the number one holiday in Japan. So that's kind of where that comes from, is holding it around that same time.
Awesome. And now you were one of the first wrestlers to basically associate yourself with Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling when this idea came about. And now, you know, the idea, it's accumulation of this. And it sounds like he's going to partner with promotions around the world to make sure that basically people can see what's going on out there. How excited are you that Wrestle Kingdom 9 is going to be in the United States for basically the first time ever?
Beyond excited, man. It's just one of those cool things that I think I've been so lucky to experience New Japan Pro Wrestling and pro wrestling in Japan, and seeing the growth, even from 2011 to now, of their company and of their business, and the amount of talent that is there and the amount of talent that has come in, and what we are producing for the fans each and every time we go out, whether it's a live event or a TV or a pay-per-view or whatever we're doing. You know, we did have the pay-per-views for a while, and that was getting more exposure into the States, but, you know, you really had to search for that. And this being a first real pay-per-view, I'm really hoping that the American fan base, who's always talking about wanting something new, wanting something different, you know, the ones who have been buzzing about New Japan and how good it is, that they take that time and actually get the pay-per-view and watch the pay-per-view and enjoy the pay-per-view, because it's going to be 4 hours of some wrestling.
And how excited are you that Jim Ross is going to be calling your 8-man tag match?
That's awesome, man. I hope good old JR is ready to see some crazy American Psycho kicking some butt.
I think that's a good thing, obviously, for New Japan, because wrestling fans here in America are very familiar with JR's voice. He's the greatest broadcaster in the history of pro wrestling, some might say, and I actually agree with that as well. Matt Stryker, very good as well. And there's a lot of American talent on the card. And it seems like they're mixing it in very well. What can fans, if this is one of their first times watching New Japan, really what can they expect from this show on Sunday?
They can expect some fighting. They can expect some pro wrestling. They can expect not to see a lot of hoopla, not really to see much of any, if any, like backstage involvement between guys or anything like that they're kind of used to on the American TV. Not that doesn't play well, not that that's not a good thing, but that's just not New Japan style. You know, you'll get some really cool video packages leading into matches and things like that. But it's going to be straight up wrestling. It's going to be straight up fighting. It's going to be, here we go, match 1, match 2, match 3, match 4, match 5. Here we go. We're fighting. The main event's going to be off the chain. It's going to be top notch. Okada and Tanahashi talking about a feud. If you haven't seen any of their matches, I dare you to go YouTube or dailymotion.com, find some of their matches, because they've already produced some match of the millennium candidates, in my opinion, and I think what they're going to be able to do on Sunday at the Tokyo Dome for the IWGP Heavyweight title is going to be intense.
Do you think that match is sort of a symbolism, the passing of the torch?
I don't know, man, because Okada's done so well, and I think that, like I said, them going back and forth so much in the last few years, I don't know if you could necessarily say this is the moment where the torch is passed, because I think it's kind of been held by both of them, and Tanahashi's not going anywhere, so it's not like he's passing in the torch so that Okada can just take over, you know, and who knows what's going to necessarily happen, because this match is not the first time in Wrestle Kingdom history they fought. it was 2 years ago that they had this match before, and that was the time. It was Okada's time. Everybody knew, believed, and thought that this was his time. He was taking the title. He was going to be the champion. This is going to be Okada's future starting now. And Tanahashi was able to pull it out and come out victorious. And so you never know what's going to happen in this time at Wrestle Kingdom between these two.
How do you mentally prepare for this show? You're in an 8-man tag match, so you're a small piece to big small piece to this match. But you obviously know that there is.
I'm the biggest piece in this small match. Here we go.
Right. I'm looking at the list of everybody in the match, and you definitely you come out
the tallest anyway.
Yes, tallest. But there's Tanahashi, and there's Okada. Those two are going to tear the roof off.
Right.
But every wrestler that I know has a mindset that they want to go out there and steal the show and have the best match of the night. So how do you mentally prepare this? Because these two are going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be a brilliant match. Right. It's you, 7 other men. How do you go into this match to basically prepare yourself to steal the show?
It's one of those moments where between Iizuka and myself, the chaos that's going to ensue from him and I coming out there, he's going to come through the crowd. He's going to tear up and terrorize somebody. I'm going to make some people scared, make some children cry, make them run for their lives. Davey Boy's going to powerbomb the crap out of somebody. Pay Dirt's going to be hit by a Shelton onto somebody. We've got Marufuji, who's in this match, who's a Japanese legend in himself, right now. And then TMDK, who as a tag team have done nothing but amazing things and have nothing but respect. But unfortunately for them, they're facing the Killer Elite Squad. And we're going to have to end that TMDK reign of whatever that is very quickly. So it's just one of those things. You've got a lot of amazing talent. Like you said, there's 8 guys involved in this. Everybody's got their own element. Yano's probably one of the more over guys in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so it's going to be easy to capture the people's attention right there. I think they're going to be extremely excited to see Marufuji back in the New Japan ring. They're going to be excited to see TMDK as a tag team, kind of mixing it up with KES is one of the biggest tag teams in New Japan, especially in recent history. So I think the 8 guys that are in there is what's going to make people pay attention. And even though it's the 3rd match on the show, and even though it's very early on, and we've got so many great matches coming after us and even before us, I think people are going to be paying attention. They're not going to turn away. There's nobody going to be going to get their popcorn. There's nobody going to be taking a break at that moment. They're going to want to see what kind of craziness ensues.
And I'm looking at the card. Obviously, AJ Styles, huge name. The Young Bucks could be arguably one of the best tag teams also right now, along with you guys.
Right.
The Bullet Club, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, they're the ones that actually has the IWGP Tag Team Championships. Right. This gives you and Davey Boy a chance to really solidify yourself as that tag team, the best tag team in New Japan. I know you're looking for a shot at the Bullet Club again. Do you feel like if you guys have a strong performance on Sunday that you potentially could be next in line to get a rematch or get a match for those IWGP titles?
Oh, absolutely. I think we're always kind of in that moment. Right now, Gallows and Gunn have a tag team match against Goto and Shibata. And the history of the last 3 tag team title matches, obviously Machine Gun's been in all 3 of them. Us in the last 2, and then you had Goto, who was a team partner with Carl Anderson 3 years ago in our first defense of the IWGP. So there's such a history there in that tag team title match. Unfortunately, we're not in that right now. Yano's the one that kind of screwed us out of our spot going through the tag league that we just finished. I think as a tag team, we're always considered competition. We're always considered in that element. It's just a point of timing and place and getting that opportunity for somebody to make that match so we can get our titles back.
What's the big difference between Wrestle Kingdom 9 or a Tokyo Dome show compared to your WrestleMania moment?
WrestleMania was obviously WrestleMania. There's not a lot of guys that get to say they were part of WrestleMania. But for me, WrestleMania, it was a pre-show match. It was a pre-show battle royal. And granted, don't get me wrong. I truly enjoyed it. The fact that I got to lace up my boots, I got to walk down that aisle, I got to step in that ring. Some of my best friends at the time, and got to fight at WrestleMania. And there's not a lot of people that get to say they got to do that. But it was just a pre-show match. It was on the DVD and things of that nature. But we weren't on the actual pay-per-view, and it didn't have any true standing to the true card and whatnot. And the last 2 Wrestle Kingdoms were, for me, the IWGP Tag Title matches. This one, we're still on the show, even though it's an 8-man match. So they're, I think, more special to me because they mean something to the show.
So WrestleMania last year, I was there in New Orleans, 75,000 people. The Tokyo Dome, the biggest record attendance they had was 63,500 people. That was set back in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
What are the guys expecting for an attendance on Sunday?
Bro, I have no idea. I think we topped 40,000 last year. I know the numbers literally, for sales and stuff are a little under that, but as far as what was in the building, we were over 40,000 last year. I'm suspecting 45 to 50.
Perfect. I mean, that's still extremely exciting, and it'll be a great success. And I'm going to ask you a couple questions, just with my business background as well. Mm-hmm. Here's my reservation for Sundays, and I'm going to watch it. But I'm saying, most people, we've become in the States now accustomed to paying $9.99 for pay-per-views.
Right.
This pay-per-view is available on all DirecTV, Dish, AT&T, Uverse, Comcast, you name it. It's pretty much out there, but it's a traditional pay-per-view format, which means you're paying a traditional pay-per-view pricing at $34.95.
Right.
Do you feel that there's going to be some reservation from your wrestling fans saying, it's $35 while I'm paying $10 a month for not only a pay-per-view, but all this other content that Vince is giving me now? And I know there are guys with business degrees and all that making these decisions, but do you feel that, and obviously the price point based on the effort that you guys put in is more than fair, but for the American public paying the price, do you feel that it's the right price for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where if you're, as a fan, if you're stepping back and you're going, $34.95 for a pay-per-view, I don't know if I want to pay that. My problem with that is, again, I go back to the fact that the wrestling fan base, the lifeblood of pro wrestling, the fans, the people that we're out there trying to entertain, the people that we're putting our bodies and lives on the line for, the ones who are screaming and yelling for something that they want something new, they want something good, they want something fresh. This is it.
Right.
And if you're looking for, next to Wrestle Mania, this is the second largest show in the world. There is no other show in the world that draws these kind of numbers with this much talent on it. You want pro wrestling? We're going to give you pro wrestling. We're going to give you fighters. One of the bigger complaints I always heard was that, the commentary is not in English, I can't understand it. Well, guess what? We gave you that. You've got good old JR, and you got Matt Striker, two of the best in the business ever. So I don't think you really have any excuses as a fan other than just going, I don't want to pay $34.95.
Right.
Because the value is beyond worth it. Beyond worth it.
I absolutely agree. I think the value is beyond worth it. There's just a couple things. One, the American public might not be familiar with New Japan. Obviously, Ring of Honor has syndication television. TNA has their new deal with Destination. So we haven't seen a lot of New Japan here in the States. So that's one thing. The price point might be another. The time frame. Okay, who's going to want to watch it at 2 in the morning? Me, I do, because I love pro wrestling. But it's also available at traditional pay-per-view time at 7 o'clock again on replay. Right. So I believe that's going to help tremendously. Right. What are you, I guess, outside of your match on Sunday, what are you most looking forward to for Wrestle Kingdom 9?
It's just the whole experience, man. It's like Wrestle Mania. The last 2 years I actually got the opportunity to ride a Harley into the building and whatnot, and I think we cut a lot of it down. Last year's show ran a legitimate 5 hours, and I don't think anybody left the building in that 5 hours. But that was because a lot of the guys had special and cool entrances. And, New Japan's working really hard to make sure that we hit that 4-hour time frame. But a lot of that comes down to the fact that we're cutting out a lot of those crazy cool entrances to give the fans pro wrestling. And that's the one thing I hear constantly, whenever they're watching other products, is that they just feel like there's way too much talking. There's not enough wrestling. I think NXT has gotten a great buzz about it because some of the wrestling that they've produced on it. With some of the talents that they've picked up and are a part of that company right now. And it's because the wrestling has been so strong. Well, guess what? We're going to give you 4 hours of the strongest wrestling in the world. And, it's like you said, the live time frame, 2 a.m. on the East Coast, 11 p.m. on the West Coast, is a little difficult for most people. But if they're wanting to catch the 7 p.m. replay, which is a normal time on Sunday, that's the best time to do it. And you're talking about the network and being $9.99. Well, guess what? New Japan has a New Japan World, basically the same thing, for 999 yen, which kind of comes down to about $8.30, which is cheaper, and it's going to have the same stuff all on it. You're going to get all matches, you're going to get pay-per-views, you're going to get the Wrestle Kingdom, you're going to get the history of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it's all right at your fingertips if you really want to get into that. So check out New Japan World.
Yeah, I heard Jeff Jarrett on Jim Ross's podcast talk about how they're really trying to take over the digital market as well, similar to what we're used to here in America. Do you know, speaking of Jeff, and he was kind enough to send us stuff for the show, do you know what his expectations are as far as American buy rates go, or is there a number in mind that they need to hit?
I have no idea, man. That's a whole different business side that I'm not privy to. I think it's one of those things. This is a first-time presentation of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They're trying to do something new and different and special for the wrestling fans of America who've been crying out for something awesome to see and something new to see. I don't know how else to say it. And that's what they're presenting for them. So I'm hoping that the wrestling fans, there's been enough buzz around the internet and through the things that we've done. And we did a whole question and answer and thing last night called Ask WK9, Ask Wrestle Kingdom 9, questions from all the different fighters that were going to be a part of it, mostly the Americans, because we were doing it, an American time frame. I'm hoping that there's enough buzz that people just go, man, I've got to see what this is about. I've got to buy this. And I hope the numbers are big and good.
They should be. I think they're going to be very successful, and then it's going to be a pleasant surprise for a lot of us in America seeing this product for the first time.
Right.
Is your 8-man tag match an elimination style match, or is it first pin match over?
That I don't know. I think it's just a first pin, but it could end up being an elimination. I'm not sure.
Awesome. Who are you pulling for in the main event?
Man, I'm just excited to see an amazing match.
Who's going to win?
I don't have invested in either one of them. It doesn't matter. Whoever wins, I'd like a shot at the title. So if Okada wins, I want a shot at the title, Okada. If Tana wins, I want a shot at the title, Tana.
I'd like to see that. That would be awesome.
I would too.
That would be great. Well, guys, the pay-per-view is live this Sunday. It is 2 a.m. East Coast time, 1 a.m. Central, 11 p.m. Pacific time, or the traditional replay at 7 o'clock. $34.95, brought to you by Global Force Wrestling here in America, but it's New Japan Pro Wrestling, right. Wrestle Kingdom 9. Yep. Ton of stuff on social media. If promoters want to book you after watching you kick ass on Sunday, how do they do it, Lance?
The best and easiest ways are just to hit me up on those social medias, whether it be Twitter, and my Twitter handle is @LanceHoyt. My Facebook is Lance Hoyt. It's a public page. I don't keep it private or anything like that. You can send me messages there anytime. If they really want to send me an email, they can. It's lancehoyt@yahoo.com. So, there's plenty of ways that they can get their money's worth. I guarantee anybody that knows me and has had me on their shows has been beyond happy with the money they've spent on having me on their shows.
Absolutely. Well, this, ladies and gentlemen, has been great. This is Lance Archer, the American Psycho. You can see him again live on Sunday. He's @Lance Hoyt on Twitter. Lance, dude, good luck on Sunday. Go tear the house down.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, and I hope everybody, and I hope you enjoy Wrestle Kingdom 9, man.
Will do, man. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Pencil, the professional wrestling podcast online. Follow us on Twitter @PencilPodcast or check us out online at pencilpodcast.com. You can listen to our show every Tuesday on iTunes, PodBean, Stitcher, and YouTube. Our show features guests from the WWE, TNA, the independent wrestling scene, and legends of wrestling past. Check it out today.